Hey, what's up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. It has been a minute. I did not intend to take this long of a break away from you guys when I stepped away, but here we are 6+ months later. I originally stepped away because a lot was going on at the time. The strikes were happening, so I didn't feel comfortable supporting potentially struck work from Struck Studios at the time, considering I'm trying to get into the guild. And not only that, but I was also moving at the time, and a bunch of my reaction videos were already getting taken down for copyright infringement. So I was putting in so much time and energy and effort into getting those videos trimmed down as much as I could, and it just seemed like it was never enough. So I have a few reactions still actually sitting in like my extra storage space, but I haven't felt the need to edit or put them together. Maybe I will once I get back into this a little bit more, but I'm hoping the quality of my videos is a bit better going forward, so I may not post those ones. Things are going to be a little different going forward with my channel. This is a bit of a reintroduction as much as it is a review of one of my favorite home invasion movies, which by the title of this video you can tell is 2008's The Strangers. Going forward, we are not just going to be doing reaction videos, I'm also going to be doing review videos. If I get enough subscribers, hopefully I can get into the more like commentary news side of things, which would be really fun. Because I watch a lot of YouTubers that make that kind of content, so I kind of want to hop in on that. So yeah, going forward, you're going to be seeing a lot of reviews, which I'm really excited for because I can actually talk about movies that I've seen and love, or hate, because you will be getting rants on this page. I know some other channels feel uncomfortable hating on a movie. You're not going to find that problem with me. I'll give credit where credit is due. I will give props where they're needed. But if a movie is bad, or if I'm disappointed with a movie, you'll know about it. I will go on a rant, and I will feel no ickiness that some channels say that they feel when they do bad reviews. Hopefully, we lean more towards the good side. Hopefully, more good movies are made. But knowing Hollywood and knowing especially the horror genre, there's going to be plenty of stinkers in there. So keep your eyes open for those coming in the future. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into The Strangers.
Why are you doing this to us? Because you were home.
And just so we're aware, there is a major spoiler warning ahead. I'm going to be talking about the events of the movie, the ending of the movie, the implications of the movie, anything and everything about the movie. So, spoiler warning, you've been warned. So, The Strangers is a 2008 horror film directed by Brian Bertino. This was his directing debut, actually, and the film stars Scott Speedman and Liv Tyler, who is the daughter of Steven Tyler from Aerosmith, which I didn't know when I originally watched this movie as a kid. My mom was the one that actually told me that, so always thought that was a really cool little detail. But yeah, this movie is a good one. This is one of, if not my favorite home invasion movie. And the reason I say that is just because there is a level of tension that is ramped up throughout the runtime of this movie, which isn't very long. It's only about an hour and 20 minutes. And so much of that tension is built on literally nothing, which to some viewers, which I found out recently, a lot of people don't like this movie, which is crazy to me because I've always loved this movie. This movie scared the crap out of me when I was younger. This movie does such a good job at slowly bringing the pot to a boil, and the tension is just ramping up. And the craziest thing about this movie is that the characters in the movie have genuinely no idea what's happening for most of the time. They have no real reason to be scared other than a couple knocks at the door, which would be really weird and off-putting, but I don't know if I would be feeling frightened from that. But we as the audience, we are waiting for these people to come in the house only to then be destroyed with the realization that they've already found a way in. They've been coming in and out. They're already messing with this chick. And now we're just waiting to see what they do. So before I get too far ahead, because I've already jumped way further than I intended to, the beginning of this movie really sets a tone. And it's upsetting. It's a very, I feel, direct homage to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which again is another one of my favorite horror films. It's just so bleak and gritty and disgusting, and especially Texas Chainsaw Massacre genuinely feels like an actual snuff film. This movie doesn't quite feel like that, but it has that same sort of atmosphere building where the tension's just ramping, and you come away from this movie feeling kind of completely gross because a lot of the violence is seemingly for no reason. And that is one of my highest praises for this movie, is this movie knows exactly what it is, exactly what story it wants to tell, and right from that opening little narration, we know what kind of movie we're in for. Even though it says based on a true story, I don't really know what the parameters of when a movie is allowed and isn't allowed to say that. But there's a few stories that people like to say is tied to this movie, and I'm not sure if they actually are, but clearly the movie isn't based on actual, a genuine crime case, so sorry, people started to disturb me, so I don't remember what point I exactly was on there. Somebody knocked on my door. I think I was on the opening narration part. This is just a tone setter, man, and for a movie that really knows how to build and work the tension within it, it's the perfect opener. It's the perfect opener. Honestly, the strangers, the actual strangers, they're some of the scariest villains in horror cinema, to me, at least. They feel very real. And that is one thing that I highly appreciate with this movie, is that it feels real, and is probably why it is my favorite home invasion movie, is because I've seen a couple, and the ones at the top of my list that I always think of are You're Next or Hush. And for me, those are awesome movies. The tension is awesome. The action is awesome. There's always something going on screen. This movie is a lot different, where a lot of the time there's nothing going on, except people being in the background of shots, watching from afar. And in a weird way, that's almost more effective for me, because it feels less like I'm watching a movie and more like I am some omnipresent specter just watching the events of what's going on. So for that, I really, really, really appreciate the hell out of this movie. It's just great. It's great. It's been a minute since I've actually sat down and watched this movie all the way through. The only reason I'm making this review is because, one, I wanted a positive review to come back to my channel with. I wanted something that I actually like to be my reintroduction. And two, we have The Strangers Chapter 1 coming out later this week. So I really hope to have this video and hopefully Strangers 2 Pray at Night uploaded either before that comes out or the weekend of it coming out. So look forward to part 2 coming out very soon. I'm probably going to record that review today or tomorrow. For this movie, the thing about this movie, even though I haven't seen it for a minute, I remember a lot more moments from this than I do those other two. Other than, the badass character that we have in each of those movies. That's kind of the standout of those movies, is the final girl. Whereas the standout of The Strangers is its closeness to reality, its bleakness. I'm not positive that it's trying to make any statements at all, but if it did, it would be a pretty depressing one, I think. And if it is, maybe about humanity and just the depravity of it all, because because you were home is one of the coldest lines that somebody could say, because at no point could you try to rationalize why this attack is happening to you, you can't even try to maybe say, oh, well, I deserve it on some degree, or whatever. It's like, no, you were just home. You came home from a wedding, and you're gonna die, which is freaky as fuck. And this movie really, really goes there. I mean, everything from the way the film is shot, the very, very low lighting, which allows the strangers to hide in the shadows, like, all the time. That is one little thing I'll say that is a con for me, is there were a few moments where I felt like the strangers were able to manipulate the shadows a little too easily, almost like they were kind of supernatural. There's a few moments, like, for instance, when she sneaks up behind him in the car and touches the back of his neck. He didn't hear her coming up behind him, but whatever. It doesn't bother me enough to really detract from the movie, but it is just one of those things where it reminds me I'm watching a movie, because a movie's got to do what a movie's got to do. The scary thing about these villains also is that they love to just wait in the background and watch. They don't even really do anything for a long time until they're ready. They start to really do a lot towards the very end. And it's almost like they finally just agreed amongst each other, like, okay, now we go in and we kill them. And it happens so fast that, as an audience member, you realize that they could have just done that at any point the entire movie. And I've seen that puts some people off. They think, oh, well, there was no payoff to that movie. To me, that makes them even scarier as villains, because the movie could have ended as soon as it began, and the only reason it didn't is because these people wanted to just mess with them, which is sick. Like I said earlier, it reminds me so much of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I would say the only other movie it reminds me a lot of is Halloween. The way that it's shot, the way that, kind of like Michael Myers in that original movie, also doesn't have a motive. They both don't have motives. I love this movie. Everything from the lighting to the cinematography to the sound design, because there isn't much of a soundtrack in this one. It's mostly just ominous music and like there's weird, creepy, off-putting sounds. There's a few jump scares in this movie that I'm kind of 50-50 on. I'm not the biggest fan of jump scares, so I tend to find them pretty cheap. But there's a few good ones in this, but I think there were also a few moments, if I'm remembering correctly, that I could have done without particularly. So that's actually a really good segue into getting into my negatives of the film, which, granted, there aren't that many, but the ones that are there are kind of glaring. For instance, I don't really have any sort of attachment to either of the characters, the main characters. To be completely honest with you, I have a hard time remembering their names, and I think I wrote it down somewhere in my notes over here, but they're just, I love the little bit that we do get with them at the very beginning, where we see how their relationship is on the rocks. There was a failed marriage proposal, and we see that they're very much still in love and are probably gonna just have to find a way to get over this speed bump that they just hit, but obviously that gets cut short because they bump into the strangers. So I do like what we get with them. Liv Tyler truly is the shining star of this movie, and that's no diss on Scott Speedman. He was great too, but his character is just, I don't know if it's underutilized or if they just don't utilize him well, but as soon as his character gets reintroduced back into the story, that's where the movie kind of starts to fall flat for me a little bit. There is parts in the middle that sag and take a little long, and I do get the criticisms when people are like, you can cut to the chase. A lot of those moments that people complain about I don't agree with, but there are a few that maybe go on just a little too long. I'm okay with a scene going on for a long time, but there are a few where they go on for a little too long. And really, it's all of the scenes that I feel like he's in that I have the hardest time remembering anything from. I remember everything from the beginning of the movie, everything with just Liv Tyler, and then I really have no memory of what he does in the movie other than go out to the car and shoot his best friend. Which, again, that was another character that we didn't even know about, which I thought was weird. It was kind of the only death that we really get to that happens in the movie between the beginning and the entire end. Like, the main characters die at the very end. We get one death in between all of that. And sure, it's shocking in the moment when you first see the movie. You're like, oh my god, he just killed his best friend. But when you've seen the movie as many times as I have, which granted hasn't been for a while, but I've seen it a few times, it doesn't pack as much of a punch, and I'm kind of left wishing that they maybe would have fleshed that character out a little bit more. Maybe we could have seen him at the wedding flashbacks or something, where he maybe had one scene talking to the husband or the male of the movie. I truly forget his name. If maybe we could have just gotten something to introduce him earlier, that would have been awesome, but he's just kind of thrown in there, and then he doesn't even say anything when he walks into the house. I remember that was something that bothered me when I watched it last, is he doesn't even, like, hey, hello? He doesn't call out or do anything. He just walks into the house and then gets shot in the face, which, I don't know. Those are my biggest negatives. Is I wish I could have cared a little bit more about the characters, because they do go through a nice arc, the main ones, where they're kind of detached at the beginning. They're still very much in love, but they're hitting a hurdle, but then they come together and protect each other at the very end, and it is sweet. You do get to see their relationship, but them as individuals you don't really get to experience. So I wish that maybe we had gotten more time to explore those characters on their own outside of the relationship, and not so much just as a couple. But other than that, this movie is a pretty hard rewatch. I don't watch it often. Like I said, it's kind of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's just gritty, it's gross, it puts me in a bad state of mind, and I only like to watch it if I'm trying to show it to somebody else to make them experience that, or if for some reason I feel like inducing self-torture that day. But yeah, I really do love this movie, as you know, as many horror fans do. I just find it so bleak and cool, and it's not even an original concept, really. It's just a concept we've seen done a million times, but it's just done so well and so real. Like, this is how I feel like an actual home invasion would go. It's so stylized in Hollywood that I think a lot of people feel like home invasions are always an action movie, and I think that most of the time it's something like The Strangers, where it's just very bleak and dark and just not great to experience. It's just like hunting prey, and that's more scary. I think this movie gets closer to the reality, which is why it's scary. It's slow, it takes its time to build up tension, and it always leaves me on the edge of my seat. I remember the first time I watched this, I was home by myself. I was alone. I was probably like 9 or 10 years old, or maybe a little older than that. I don't know if I was getting left home alone at that age, but maybe like 12, maybe, the first time I watched it. And man, I was home alone, and oh man, nope, you couldn't have gotten me to go near any door that day. Like, that movie bugged me out. I lived in the middle of the woods at the time, so I was very much in the setting of where this movie took place, and it freaked me out for a while, actually. So The Strangers has a special place in my heart, and I cannot wait to break down The Strangers Part 2, Pray at Night. So with that, I'm happy to be back. I hope you guys watch this video and like, comment, subscribe. I don't know, I really hope that I can do this more consistently and for long term. This is something that I think think I really just want to do. I can't wait for you guys to see what I have in store for the channel. Leave comments down below to what you guys want to see me either react or review or just talk about next. I want to do watch-alongs, things like that, so just let me know what you guys want to see, and I will try to provide it on a more regular basis than what I was previously doing. I'm just happy to be back, and I hope you guys enjoy everything. So, without repeating myself too many times, peace.